After winning a big shootout win on the road in DC, the Lightning are back tomorrow night from their Christmas break. We break it all down and all the action and news coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Denker. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Locked On Lightning. Just a reminder that this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we discuss the previous win up in DC, as well as some of the things we took away from that game, as well as the Lightning continuing finding ways to win, as well as we look forward to tomorrow night's game against the Florida Panthers. And before we get into all that, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. You can also find us on YouTube, so go ahead, subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button below this video, as well as drop a comment below to get in on the conversation. So the Lightning going into DC after picking up a couple of very good wins, or even, we don't even have to say wins, we could say performances, because I think that's the way we should look at this team going forward. And I'm going to say that right off the bat, as important as it really is for this team, especially this, I wouldn't say late, because there's still a lot of games to be played. A lot could happen in the standings from now until the end of the season. But at the same time, the thing that is more important than wins for this team is good performances, because I feel like you perform well, you play the right way, the wins will come, the points will come. So that's not really something I'm worried about right now at this moment. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, as we all know, as inconsistent as they could be, it is very important, probably more important than anything else, than for this team to go out there and put in good performances. And we saw that the other night against the Washington Capitals, and that brings the Lightning winning streak up to 3, which is something we haven't been able to say a lot this season. The Lightning have been very inconsistent. They'll go out, they'll win a couple of games, and then completely fall flat on their face. And as optimistic, and I really try to be positive about this team, because we all know when things go bad, they could go very bad for this team. When they go well, they have a very hard time of continuing that level of play. But the last 2 games prior, going into this past weekend matchup against the Washington Capitals, I thought the Lightning have played very well. For example, you go into St. Louis, just to recap, you're playing against a team that, in my opinion, is not very good, very shaky goaltending out there in St. Louis. You put 6 on the board against them, and then you wrap one up at home against arguably the best team in the league in a very back and forth game, a very good game where the Lightning really took control. We spoke a lot about that game where the Lightning played arguably their best period of the year in that second period, hanging 4 on the board there in the second period. If you haven't listened to that, go back to that episode. That was a phenomenal episode. There was a lot of things that we dove into in that episode. But the Lightning finish up those two good performances in a weekend matchup on the road in DC in a shootout. And this was a game that I was more so worried about what the Lightning weren't going to do, as opposed to what maybe the Capitals were going to do. Because with this Lightning team, when you go into a matchup like this, and yes, the Capitals have played well this year, but their style of play doesn't exactly match up well against the Lightning. And the Lightning, if they don't go out and play the way that we all know they could play, then that is a matchup that they are themselves going to make very difficult for them. And I hate to use this cliche, but when it really came down to it, if the Lightning were going to lose this game, they were really going to beat themselves. But I thought for the most part, throughout the course of this game, the Capitals rose to the occasion. They did a very good job of going out there and just really just holding their own against Tampa Bay. Whereas on the other side of that, I will say I did not think that Tampa played overly impressive. I thought they played within the flow of the game, which is not always a bad thing. Um, we've spoken a lot about on this podcast about how, sometimes you could go out against a very good team or a very bad team. But at the same time, you have to go and play to what the flow of the game is giving you that night. Because, for example, the worst team in the league, who statistically off the top of my head, I don't even know who's the worst team in the league right now. But if the San Jose Sharks go out there and they're playing like a Stanley Cup team, if they're playing like a Vegas Golden Knights, for whatever reason, maybe they woke up on the right side of the bed, then the Lightning are just going to have to handle it. They're just going to have to figure it out as the night goes on. And there's no rhyme. There's no reason. That's just the game of hockey as it is. And Saturday, I thought that was kind of the tail of the tape for the Lightning. They were kind of just holding their own. And I thought that they really did a good job of matching the Capitals tit for tat, whether it be on defensive plays, whether it be on puck possession. I thought for the most part, regardless of what the numbers say, and we'll get into that in just a bit, I thought that the Lightning did a very good job of kind of just playing within their game as well as taking chances when they were willing to and able to. So just looking at this game statistically, the Lightning only had 20 shots on goal, whereas opposed the Capitals had 34. The Lightning absolutely dominated the faceoff circle, which I've spoken time and time again, how really it's important for the Lightning to own that part of the ice, especially now that you have the pieces to do so, especially with Luke Glendening, who I think has really done a phenomenal job of just getting the Lightning to where they need to be on a nightly basis in terms of face-off percentage. And you look up and down the line, everybody did well. And Glendening, 70% on the night, which is phenomenal. And like I said, when the Lightning win, and not only now or past victories, but when we're going to be talking about the Lightning in the future, whether it be next week or the week after or in the playoffs, every game, I think, as if the Lightning are dominating the faceoff circle, we could always look at Luke Glendening as a part of that positivity, that performance, that reason why the Lightning depth and that part of the game is so important. So this was a game where I firmly believe that if the Lightning did not play as well in the faceoff circle, we might be talking a little bit of a different story here in terms of the outcome, the flow of the game, and all of that. But the Lightning end up going ahead and winning this game in a shootout, which, if you've been a listener of this show for quite some time, I am not a big shootout person, really. I mean, the only time I'm really kind of excited about it is the Olympics, but I don't know. I just feel like especially with the whole thing with TJ Oshie back in the day, that's why. But for regular season games or playoffs or whatever, well, just really regular season games, so that's when it happens. I'm just not a fan of it because you're just completely taking the whole aspect of the game out of it. And especially on the other side of that, it's Andrei Vasilevskiy, in my opinion, is not very good in shootouts. He only let up one goal, which was good, but still, it's a flip of a coin competition at that point, and really not that much real in-game talent really plays in mind. So, but Lightning pull it out 2-1, extend their winning streak to 3, and now they hit the Christmas break off, but they're back into it tomorrow night against their in-state rivals, the Florida Panthers. We'll break that down later on, but coming up, we're going to talk about how really not just this game, but throughout certain parts of the season as well as going forward, the Lightning have and will have to continue to find ways to win, whether it be scoring a lot of goals or doing little things here and there. We'll break it all down and talk about it in just a bit. But first, I want to talk about one of our sponsors today, and that is our friends over at FanDuel. Now, listen up, everybody. Listen, you got college basketball, NHL, NBA, NFL, all in full swing. College football too. The bowl season's in full swing. Right now, new customers, and you want to be able to get in on that action with betting, props, all that stuff. And FanDuel is your number one home for all that, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off your NHL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So as always, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are shipping in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel there. Drop a comment below to get in on the conversation, as well as hit that thumbs up button below. Lightning really playing well, which is, a weird thing to say consistently throughout this season, but this team is getting better, and that's something that we could all get excited about, because especially with the schedule that we've spoken about coming up over the past week, really, you had Vegas, which was really, I think, a game that a lot of us, including yours truly, was very nervous about how that was going to unfold. You had Washington, who is a playoff team, who actually has the number one spot in the wild card right now at the time of this recording. The Lightning are number 2 now, back in the wild card, back in the playoff conversation. The Lightning do have a couple of tough tasks coming up upon for them right before the new year. They got Florida tomorrow night. They got the Rangers on the weekend. And their last game of 2023 is against the Montreal Canadiens, who are regardless of how you feel about the Canadiens at this point in time, still a very tough team, still a very gritty team, a team that is going to take it to the Lightning very aggressively, and the Lightning are going to have to be ready for that. But in the meantime, we're going to just take a step back and talk about, because with any good hockey team, the important thing for them, and the thing to always look for when you're looking at that good hockey team, or if they're playing well, is how are they winning games? How are they playing? What is it about their performance that constitutes them playing well? Well, when I look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, because I feel like and I'm sure if you go to other shows, if you go to other Locked On NHL shows, or even just any sports show, really any Locked On sports show, and you go to that host and you ask them, what is it about your team that you consider generally when they're playing well? And if someone were to ask me that, my answer would be, is this Lightning team, first of all, winning? Second of all, how are they winning? Are they just outscoring everybody 7-1, 8-0, 5-0, 3-0, whatever the scores are? Are they landslides, or are they going through adversity? And if someone's telling me, well, they're blowing everybody out of the building on a nightly basis, I'm saying, well, that team might be winning games, but at the same time may not be preparing themselves for the playoffs. And some of you are probably asking yourselves now, what are you talking about? What do you mean when you say they're not preparing themselves for the playoffs? Because in the playoffs, as we all know, if you've been a Lightning fan for a long time, you're very familiar with playoff runs. You're very familiar with just the roller coaster that is a Tampa Bay Lightning playoff series. And the thing that I look for when I determine whether or not the Lightning are ready for the playoffs is if they're winning games, are they winning them in various ways, whether it be overtime wins, whether it be single-handedly outplaying the other team? And then when you dive deeper into those wins, are they just taking a bunch of shots on net? Are they just laying the body all over the ice? Are they forcing turnovers? What aspect of their game is it that they are doing well in order for them to win games? When I look at this team, and really when I'm going to ask all of you, if this Tampa Bay Lightning team is winning, what is the most important part of their performance that you feel good about, that they're doing well? Well, mine at least is, are they finding different ways to win on a nightly basis? Because if you have a team, for example, the Lightning, that are just taking 35, 40 shots a night and they're scoring 34 goals a night, and that's not going to happen. We've seen that. We've seen, for example, the last game against Capitals, they only have 20 shots. Thing is, are they able, when a team, especially a team as good as them, for example, Vegas, are they able to roll with the punches as the game goes along? Or are they going to just stick in and do their same old game plan over and over and over again? Because if they're doing that, that's not, as we have all know, as we've all seen, that's not a winning attitude. That's not a winning formula for this Lightning team. And you've seen it over the last couple of games, especially these last 3 wins. You've seen 3 different wins. The game against St. Louis, they just completely outplayed them. You've seen again the game against the Golden Knights, where they got off to a slow start, and they absolutely exploded in that second period for a bunch of goals, thanks to someone who didn't even score at all, whether it be points or goals that night, Brandon Hagel, who amped up that team, and they ended up winning the game 5-4. Very late, too, I might add. And then you have a game last night where the Lightning couldn't really get anything going. They couldn't really separate themselves in terms of who was the better team in regulation. And that had to be decided in overtime as well as shootout. And I think that eventually the Lightning would have scored in overtime. Maybe that's just my biased opinion because they won in the shootout. So I feel like the way they were playing was sustainable enough to where they would have found something or found a way to get to Lindgren. But my point here is that that's what you want to see out of your team. That's what you want to see out of your team at this point in the season. Because if you're seeing win after win of doing the same thing over again, but then they're losing games when that one aspect is being shut off. And we've seen this with the Lightning. That was their big problem last year. They weren't able to do really much of anything else other than outscore teams. And for whatever reason, they couldn't figure that out until it was too late into that playoff series against the Leafs. But they have found, in my opinion, a great winning attitude, a great winning formula in order for them to get things going. And for them to be able to do that is huge because, in my opinion, and this might be biased, it changes the game for the rest of the division because now you have a team who's playing with confidence, who has a couple of good matchups to end the 2023, and now you're back in the playoff position, and then you open up the new year with Boston, New Jersey, Buffalo, Detroit, Philly, New Jersey once again. You're playing some very good teams, and you have tons of opportunities coming up to get yourselves into the top 3 as well as maybe even closer, because right now, at the time of this recording, the Lightning are only a point behind the Florida Panthers. They win tomorrow night, they are back in the top 3 in this division. Whereas And I know a lot of people, I'm just going to say right now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that was because of who was in net to start the season as opposed to who is now. Yes, Vasilevskiy has played phenomenal. I will not take anything away from him. He deserves his flowers. He deserves his due credit. But at the same time, this team as a whole has played better because of their willingness to change, their willingness to do things differently, not only from game to game, but from period to period. And that's why and this team is successful. And that's why this team is only a point out of not only the 3 spot in the division, but potentially, I don't even know if Toronto is playing tomorrow night, but possibly the 2nd spot in the division. I mean, Lightning continue to play this way, and I know I'm jumping ahead of myself right now, but the Lightning continue to play this way. We could potentially be talking about them playing for the number 1 spot in the division in 2 weeks or less, depending on what other teams do. But the Lightning have played themselves into a very good situation. But still, you know what? You're 5 points out of tying for the number 1 spot in the division. 5 points is a very big hill to climb, but it's not insurmountable. So let me know in the comments below what you think. How have you been enjoying the way the Lightning have been playing? I love it because when we get to see the many faces of the Tampa Bay Lightning when they win games, it just makes everything so enjoyable, and it gives them and us so much more confidence when you're going into all these different matchups because teams play differently across the NHL. So we'll keep an eye on that. And then coming up in just a bit, we will preview the upcoming matchup the Tampa Bay Lightning have tomorrow night against the Florida Panthers. All that coming up and more. But first, I want to talk about our last sponsors of the day, and that is our friends over at Gametime. Now, the holiday Christmas is gone. Christmas is done. We're on the 26th. But guess what? That doesn't mean you can't stop looking for presents or gifts for your loved ones or friends that you still haven't seen, that you're still in the clear to get a gift. And if you want to take them to an event, then look no further because Gametime is the app for you. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I buy tickets from Gametime all the time. My favorite thing is that they give you the deal of the day. So you might even get your ticket for significantly less than what it was originally listed for on the app. So go ahead and the best part is also if you're late, you could also buy tickets up until half hour after the event has started. So go ahead, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So as always, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. You could also follow us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button below the video and comment below to get in on the conversation. So the Lightning will be facing off in the long-awaited season series opener against the Florida Panthers. And it's the Lightning's first crack at the Florida Panthers since last year. And these games are always, I've been talking about it for forever. I feel like I talk about it every week where I'm always talking about the Lightning playing as if they're getting ready for the playoffs because really that's the goal, right? You want to get to the playoffs and, you don't want to have to change a lot of things you do when you get to the playoffs. And what a better way to get in that playoff mood, especially as now the Lightning are back in the playoff conversation, at least for now in the wild card, against your in-state rival in the Florida Panthers at home tomorrow night. And The Panthers, like I said, only a point ahead in the standings, ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are currently tied for second in the division in points with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where the Maple Leafs have 2 games in hand. And I'm super excited about this game, not only because of the implications, the short-term implications that this game holds, because if the Lightning win, we could very well be talking about them not only being in third place, but also being behind the Boston Bruins in the Atlantic Division. And I'm interested to see what kind of game the Florida Panthers are going to play, because this is going to be a game in which I firmly believe that the Panthers are going to test the Lightning. They're going to test them very early. Well, there's actually 2 probably very likely scenarios in this one. The Panthers are going to test them early on, or I firmly believe also that we might see them wait us out. At least that's what I would do if I was an opposing team. I would most likely do the latter. I would probably go into this probably just kind of testing the waters a little bit, see what the Lightning want to do, see what their tendencies are, and then kind of test Vasilevskiy out, maybe try and get at least maybe 10 shots on him in the first period, and then grind them down in that second period, towards the end of the first period as well. Grind them down, play physical, try to force them into some mistakes, whether it be taking a bad penalty or just turning the puck over. Just try to put pressure on them, but not too much to where you're overexerting your coverage, to where you're leaving yourself open. And I think that's where the Lightning are going to have to go into the mindset of puck possession, and kind of do what we saw them do in the game against the Knights, as well as the previous game against the Capitals. I would love to see them go into this game and kind of not fire off a billion shots, but go in and kind of pick your spots when available, because at the end of the day, if the Panthers choose to clog up the lanes, which I firmly believe they will, I think that the Lightning, because this is the hope whenever you're doing that, is that the team will get frustrated and will fire off more shots into traffic that will get blocked. And I think that's where the Lightning will have to be picky about what exactly they want to do and what exactly their plans are offensively. And I think that's really what excites me about these last 2 wins as well, because the Lightning have looked, for the most part, very measured, very calm when they've faced adversity. And if they decide to play the puck possession game, that plays in their favor, because they've been playing phenomenally in terms of the faceoffs this year. And I think that really that's a game that the Panthers don't really want to play with them. They're 16th in the league, 50.3% in the faceoff circle, where the Lightning are at 52, which is 7th in the league. And I think that, as impressive on paper the Lightning have been in terms of scoring, I think at the end of the day, I think we might see a more physical game from the Panthers. And at the same time, I will say the thing that kind of scares me about this game, which it scares me, but it also excites me in a way, because Sergei Bobrovsky has had a very good year, 15-9-1. He's goals against average of 2.5. His save percentage is .910. And I think that the Panthers would also like to test Vasilevskiy in the way that, let's see where he's at. Let's make him win this game. And I think that could potentially be a storyline that we'll see throughout the course of the game, that they are going to play a way to where they are going to force Vasilevskiy to win this game. And it kind of goes back to all things I said, playing physical, clogging up puck lane, shooting lanes, making 88 really do all the work on the other side. And I think that we might see that, but that goes back to puck possession. If the Lightning are limiting chances by holding onto the puck more, then the Panthers won't be able to do that. And I think it will come down to the guys that you got on your side that are handling the puck: Kucherov, Hedman, Point, Nick Paul, Anthony Cirelli. Those guys are going to really have to buckle down. They're really, especially Kuch and Hedman, are really have to do a really good job of when they're cycling the puck around the zone. They're going to really have to do a really good job of holding on to it and not allowing the Panthers get any opportunities down the other side of the ice. So, like I said, I always love these games. They always are exciting, but there's always opportunity and chances that things could get out of hand and the game could quickly spiral out of control for either team. So, really excited for this, and we'll be back tomorrow night to recap this one. So as always, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube, so go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button below this, as well as comment below. So go ahead so you could join in on the conversation. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Denker. I'll talk to you in the next one.